Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The United States has twice sided with Russia in votes at the United Nations to mark the third anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, highlighting the Trump administration's change in stance of the war. First, the US opposed a European-drafted resolution condemning Moscow's actions and supporting Ukraine's territorial integrity, voting the same way as Russia and countries including North Korea and Belarus at the UN General Assembly in New York. Then the US drafted and voted for a resolution at the UN Security Council which called for an end to the conflict, but contained no criticism of Russia.
A simple, historic statement from the General Assembly that looks forward, not backwards. A resolution focused on one simple idea: ending the war.
We speak about frozen assets. We already used them to back precisely the loans negotiated at the G7.
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has said a truce between Ukraine and Russia would be agreed in the coming weeks. He was speaking in Washington following talks with Donald Trump at the White House on the third anniversary of Russia's invasion. The US president, who suggested the war could end within weeks, insisted Europe should shoulder the cost and burden of any peacekeeping deal for Ukraine. Macron said any peace deal in Ukraine must not be a surrender of Ukraine and must be backed by security guarantees. Authorities in the southern Indian state of Telangana are racing against time to save 8 construction workers trapped inside a tunnel for more than 72 hours. Around 50 workers had been working inside the 43-kilometre-long tunnel located in Nagar Kurnool district when a part of its roof caved in early on Saturday morning. Officials say 43 of them managed to come out safely, but efforts to reach the remaining 8 men have faced repeated setbacks due to loose soil, mud and slush inside the tunnel. The freezing of US humanitarian assistance has forced the closure of almost 80% of the emergency food kitchens set up to help people left destitute by Sudan's civil war. Aid volunteers said the impact of President Donald Trump's executive order halting contributions from the US government's development organization for 90 days meant that more than 1,100 communal kitchens had to shut. It is estimated that nearly 2 million people struggling to survive have been affected. The conflict between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces has killed tens of thousands of people, forced millions from their homes, and left many facing famine since it erupted in April 2023. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says the UK will increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027. Defence spending is currently equal to 2.3% of GDP. Mr Starmer says by 2027 the increase will mean an extra £13.4 billion a year on defence. While defence spending increases, Keir Starmer says aid spending will fall from 0.5% of national income to 0.3%.
I know that this House will endorse the principle of winning peace through strength. So starting today, I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War.
Singapore's biggest bank, DBS, says it expects to cut around 4,000 roles over the next 3 years as artificial intelligence takes on more work currently done by humans. The move will affect temporary and contract staff, with the reduction in the workforce coming from natural attrition as projects are completed. Permanent staff are not affected by the cuts. The bank's outgoing chief executive also said it expected to create around 1,000 new AI-related jobs. It makes DBS one of the first major banks to offer details on how AI will affect its operations. And an aeronautical company in the US has released footage showing a concept version of its flying car performing a vertical takeoff before flying over an SUV. The CEO of Aleph Aeronautics said that he had thousands of pre-orders and hoped to start production within 12 months. For around $300,000, the company says buyers will get an electric flying car with a predicted airborne range of 110 kilometers. But taking a friend for a spin may prove tricky. The cockpit only has enough room for 1.5 people. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.